Nice fresh drink of water. Okay. So what I got going on today? I am in the process of prepping for a meeting that I have about the indie music city strategy. So, um, I'm also, if you want to see like what I'm doing on this iPad, there's this like 150-ish page document that was done, written in July 2020. That is this like big comprehensive um, understanding of what is happening in Indianapolis and how the like music ecosystem can go forward. If you want to see this thing that's on my screen, I'm going to put it up on YouTube. So if you want to go to youtube.com/at mffred, you should see live stream stuff. But I have a meeting a little bit later today, and I've been reading through this like long, big 150-page final report. And of course, my cat is going to come and hang out while. Look at this guy. Look at that. You're about to see some cat booty. Let's move him out of the way. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I'm excited for them to try and fire it back up too. Honestly, I was a little like confused. I was like, man, we have this whole idea, we have this whole project. Like people are doing it. It seems like, it's happening, and then obviously the pandemic happened and made it really hard. So, something I was thinking about doing, I've been going through here and making notes for myself on like what things are kind of like big highlighted points, something that's really important. But for those of you who aren't really in the know, I think there's like a nice little background area here. So it says about the indie music strategy. Sound Diplomacy hosted their first ever U.S. Music City Forum in Indianapolis in 2018. Basically, the goal was to try and collect a lot of information on what was happening in the scene, interview people, talk, chat, whatever. All that fun stuff. Hold on one second. Okay, cool. Sweet. In February 2019, they began working on an extensive music strategy. So basically, this 150-page, the meeting. There is a meeting today, at 4:30 at Pattern, which you're pretty close to, probably, unless you're snowed in. I don't know. That's Chris Banta of what is it called? Romanus Records fame. Brother of brother fame in my book, till the day you die. Okay. So basically, phase one of the indie music strategy focused on the creation of a music vision for the city. So what they were trying to do is to say, like, okay, what is the ecological impact assessment? What is happening? What is going on in the city? And how can we kind of like explore better local policies to make things work? So that was February to June 2019. Basically benchmarking Indianapolis against other places. They have phase two. It's July 2019 to January 2020. Basically, the Sound Diplomacy team came to Indianapolis and did some roundtable conversations. If you all were around Indy, you may have seen stuff about that. If you're an artist and you were, I don't know, trying to be involved. So I can't figure out. I want a movie microphone stand for the YouTube live stream. It's more important for that. Anyway, okay. Basically, they went through and they created this document of all of this demographic information, all of this like very, very detailed stuff, and then said, okay, cool, how can we make Indianapolis a cool place to be? And so I found inside of this document a couple things that were really, really interesting. If you all want in the chat, you all are welcome to comment below on how much economic output do you think that the music ecosystem in Indianapolis puts in? And it's going to be above $500 million to the like general economy. I'll give a second. It's over $500 million a year, which is a lot, which is crazy, at least for the musicians who don't make that much money. It is $1.199 billion. $1,199,000,000. Ooh, Bill, you're so close. 1.2. That's pretty much it. You're right there. Gross value added of $802 million. So gross value added, that was something I didn't really understand it because I don't look at a lot of this like data-y type stuff. So I went through and I was looking at what gross value added means. It says the music ecosystem output minus ecosystem consumption, so the cost of all inputs. For example, equipment rented by a live music promoter. So for instance, if we are given, let's say I'm given $100 and I want to put on a show and it costs me $5 to host that show, then I have a gross value added of $95. So for instance, I'm going to draw it on the screen. If you all want to follow along and you want to see what I'm looking at, just go to youtube.com and look for MFFred, all one word, MFFred. I think if you put youtube.com/@MFFred, it'll go to the right place, but who knows? Okay, cool. So gross value added, that basically means that like we are making a profit. That is that we don't have a lot of stuff that costs things. So we are adding $802 million in gross value to the city. So some of that money has to go to actually like produce and make things happen, but most of it we're making a pretty gosh darn good profit. Let's see, what is 802 million divided by 1.19, basically 200 billion. Or 1.2 billion. So like 66%, 66.8%. Basically 67% of the money that is like created from this is actually not being consumed, just like it's stuff that's profit, it's money, it's good money. That's awesome. That was in 2017. So this was before the pandemic, this is before everything changed. The total number of jobs generated and supported by the music sector in the area was 8,467. Now, that's really interesting, but I was really compelled when I started looking at the actual like percentage of people employed by the city in comparison to other places. So, or not employed by the city, but employed in the music industry in the city. So, if we're looking at, let's see, New York City, they have a 1.4% of the total number of people who are, working in the music entertainment sector of some kind. So that's pretty cool. But we have a 1.85%. So these are people who are working either as artists or as support people. So people who are working at like a music education center, or maybe they work for Yamaha, or they're like a graphic designer at Drum Corps International. These are people who have a job because they are working in some adjacency to the music scene, or music in general. Now, in places like Austin, which is a really similar size city, about 1 million people, they have 2.55% of their overall economy working in the music industry or music ecosystem, if you will. So not just like musicians, not just people playing music, but people who are, in something related, okay? So I thought that was really interesting, seeing that we are so much higher than somewhere like New York City, which in my mind would be the top tier. Like, yeah, everybody is a musician in New York City. It's a huge music city. But no, we're not too far. We're at 1.85%, and Austin is at 2.55%. They also compared us to Asheville. I think Asheville's a little bit too small for my taste. It's like 95,000 people, and it's a college town. I don't feel like that's like a reasonable comparison. But that's just my take. I really like, and I'm just going to read some of my highlights here. They said at the beginning of the research process, the following goals were articulated by sound diplomacy to identify how Indianapolis music ecosystems and its stakeholders can best be supported from the bottom up and the top down. The vision is our aspiration for Indianapolis if we consolidate all the recommendations in the strategy. So they're literally going to give us, hey, we've done all the research, we've spent all this time studying all this stuff. I want to tell you my opinion, what should happen. So I'm just going to read it so you can have it, and if you want to watch it later, you can understand what it is. But I found this really insightful. Music is for everyone. Indianapolis has been intentional in its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts around the development of its plan, and thus has ensured that all. Sorry, I'm tilting this up so I can see it better, so I can read it better because it's hard to read when it's flat. Okay. All right, the city has ensured that the development of its music ecosystem happens with diverse musicians empowered and at the table to have a voice in the process. As a result, musicians and fans in Indianapolis feel included and represented in the music story, regardless of their race, gender, age, or neighborhood. Indianapolis has taken steps through smart policy to introduce more development of all ages venues and youth music programs, access to music education in public schools, and recognizes the unique needs of different metro areas when it comes to participation in music. In that, I highlighted smart policy, all ages venues, youth music programs, access to education, unique needs of different metro areas, because like each city is a little bit different. Indianapolis considers both the preservation of its historical music cultural assets. That was a big thing for me, and how its music strategy can create opportunity and activity around the metro area that truly look and sound like the city. In an ecosystem that invites all music fans and music makers to participate without needless boundaries to access or discrimination. Great. I love that. Good story about that. My friend and I went to a little fundraiser event. Oh, my cat, he wants pets. It's so cute. My friend Case, he's in a wheelchair. Little accessible friend of mine who has to get around where there's you need a little bit more room. You need a little bit more understanding of like how doors work and how they open when you're in a wheelchair and when you're helping people in a wheelchair. So we were at the Hi-Fi for this little fundraising event, and we were able to get in the front door very, very early. It was awesome. And then we were stuck. We were like stuck at the very front of the venue because we just couldn't get out. Like people started piling in. My friend's in a wheelchair. They can't just squeeze through like a tiny little person. So I went to the back and talked to the guys working the door and was like, hey, look, my friend's in a wheelchair. There's literally no way that we can get out the front door. We have to go out the back door, out the loading dock some way. We're on wheels here. We're not walking. Let's figure this out. And they were totally fine with it. They were like, yeah. Heck yeah, you can totally come in and out of the back. Now, I've been to the Hi-Fi so many times, I did not know that they would be willing to let somebody who's in a wheelchair have access in that kind of way. Because a lot of times, it's super stressful to try and get in and out of a venue, go to shows. If you're helping a friend who has some sort of accessibility, those are things you got to consider. So I'm on that team. I'm like, hey, look, we need that. We need both for people of different ages. Obviously, as we get older, my back hurts more. I shoveled the snow the other day, and now my back hurts, so I'm old. We need more accessibility. So that's cool. Music requires. Oh, and also, if you all are watching this on Instagram and you want to see it on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@mffred, mffred, or Fred, 2 Fs. Anyway. Indianapolis has shed or revised clunky, outdated policies that inhibit the growth of its music and culture, including its dance hall ordinance. For those of you who don't know what that is, we'll talk about that in a second, and liquor laws that can stifle all ages music scenes. Okay, so a dance hall ordinance in Indianapolis basically means you have to fill out some form to do a music venue. You want to start a music venue, you want to start hosting shows, you have to get this dance hall permit to be able to do that. Now, there are ways to work around it, the same way with liquor laws, which makes it really, really hard to host all ages shows. But basically, they're saying hey, we should revise those things. In my opinion, and one of the things that they talk about in this document a little bit later, they talk a lot about creating certain areas or certain neighborhoods where people can actually go and have different rules. So, for instance, in Fountain Square, which is, you got some apartments and stuff, but a lot of times you have, a lot of music venues, a lot of little shops, stuff like that. We're probably going to have different rules than somewhere like Garfield Park, which is predominantly neighborhoods and communities and things like that. So, continuing on that sentence, it's also filled policy gaps by introducing new smart ordinances that offer protections and supports for musicians, including protecting live music venues and other premises with a, quote, agent of change policy. This is a technical term basically saying that if you are a real estate developer coming into a town and you're like, hey, I love the hi-fi. You guys have done a great job. I'm going to make the hi-fi my spot. I want to buy the building. We're going to renovate it. It's going to be awesome. We're putting apartments upstairs. And then they do that, and it's awesome, and the hi-fi expands, and then you get a complaint from the apartment upstairs. And then they say, hey, guys, the hi-fi, I know it's part of your lease. You all used to go do shows until midnight. We got apartments now. It's a little bit too loud, so we're going to have to cut those shows down to 10 o'clock. Okay, well, we were here first. You bought the building. You wanted to improve it. You liked what we brought to the neighborhood, and now you want to change that. What right do we have to kind of defend ourselves? And there is no right in Indiana right now. So if the hi-fi, if a developer bought the hi-fi, they decided to, make changes to it, make improvements to the building, open it back up, and then they got noise complaints, the hi-fi very well could lose their lease, even though they were the very center of creating this beautiful economic growth that we see in places like Fountain Square. So agent of change policy is something they're talking about implementing, as well as artist compensation policy that establishes fair payment as a core value of city government. All right. First of all, there is a big difference. There's a lot of different musicians, a lot of people who don't make money from the government, and some musicians who do. Some musicians who play shows. I've been one of those people who've been booked for random government shows or random publicly funded organization shows, and they don't have a policy on what to pay people. They'll reach out and say, we have $200 and we want 7 hours of music. And then when you're young and you need an opportunity and you want a gig, you say, hell yeah, dude, I'll be there. And then you bomb the gig and you never get hired again. And then you start a new band and you get gigs. And this cycle kind of continues. You don't make enough money. You don't make enough to pay everybody, so you lose band members. If we are living in a city that is funding music, we should probably have policies around how that payment is being given out fairly. How much should each musician on stage get paid? How frequently or how consistently should we be doing these events to make sure this makes sense? So yeah, that's part of it. It says this approach not only makes Indy safer and more an opportunistic place to live and work. Great, totally agree. The next section, and just so you all, for you who join a little bit later, if you want to see the document I'm looking at on my iPad, youtube.com/mf@mffred, youtube.com/@mffred. Also, I am looking at the music strategy, Indianapolis music strategy document that was created in 2020, over the last couple years. Anyway, so I'm reading through their vision for what they see Indianapolis going into. So it says, music is a continuous learning process. This is their next section. Indianapolis knows that its music ecosystem will only be as vital as its music education offerings and music engagement for young people. The city has been intentional about expanding access to music for children and increasing the overall youth participation in metro or music areas in the metro area. I highlighted that. That felt important to me. They kind of wax poetic a little bit. Indianapolis supports access to music education and integrated music curriculum in its primary schools. This is something, especially now, with the way that they're trying to get rid of schools that are public in Indianapolis. IPS, they're trying to turn that into a charter school program by, I think, 2030 something. So, we got to have music education. If it's not publicly funded, how do we do that? So this is thoughtful. It also says things like, it understands the power of music education and engagement in churches, community centers, and at colleges and universities. Totally agree. I learned most of my music skills playing in churches, not community centers or colleges and universities. But a lot of people learn in those places, so we need to make sure those things are supported. Music means business. Indianapolis doesn't work to make its music business ecosystem like any other city. Instead, it recognizes its current music business assets, including relationships with people like Yamaha. If you all didn't know, Yamaha, it actually has a headquarters here. My friend Jalissa works there. That's pretty cool. It provides support and connectivity to those businesses to enhance the uniquely indie music business infrastructure, as well as access to music business education to empower entrepreneurs. Something that's not captured here because it didn't happen until recently, I think IUPUI's music technology program is doing a good job of bringing some of this like connection together. Matt Fetcher is a fantastic like computer developer, music guy, just a good person all around, doing a lot of good stuff in the city. And he has very much gone to bat for Indianapolis to make sure that we are being seen inside of this large overall, world of what's happening in the music industry. Now, it says like music, we recognize our current business assets. I found in here something really interesting. Let me see if I can find that. Indianapolis, Indiana, we have a lot of music venues, surprisingly. We have access. Is this it? Yeah, okay, cool. So, as it comes to like music venues per capita, music festivals per capita, recording studios, recording labels, things like that, I'm going to start just giving you all a list of numbers for Indianapolis. For music venues per 100,000 people, we have 13.4. So for every 100,000 people, we have 13 music venues. We have 3.9 music festivals. We have 6 recording studios and 10 recording labels. That's in Indianapolis. So 13, 3.9, 6, and 10 for venues, festivals, studios, labels. Okay? Pretty cool. Now, when we look at places like bigger cities, so for instance, look at Nashville, we've got Atlanta, we've got New Orleans, and we've got San Francisco. So these are like big music cities, places where like music is happening all the time. People go there to see live music. In Nashville, remember we had 13.4 music venues for every 100,000 people. In Nashville, it's 15.2. So not really that much more, a little bit more. Overall, the actual numbers of venues, we have 116 venues, and Nashville has 105. Now, Atlanta has 1.3 music venues for every 100,000 artists, or every 100,000 people. New Orleans is 10.3, and San Francisco is 10.9. Like, ooh, did they do a thumbs up? That's pretty cool. Hold on. I don't know if that worked. Anyway. Whatever. Anyway. Okay. So, looking at this, if we're thinking about it this way, I'm going to go down music festivals. For music festivals, 3.9. Nashville, 2.9. New Orleans, 10.4. That's kind of wild. There's like so many recording studios in New Orleans for some reason. And San Francisco, 5. So we're not really that far off from somewhere like Nashville. We have 13.4 per capita per 100,000 people. 13.4 versus 15.2 in Nashville. Music festivals, 3.9 versus 2.9 in Nashville. So actually more music festivals, which pretty cool. Recording studios, 6 versus 10.9. So we have 6. I think I read those numbers wrong. Anyway, we have 6 recording studios per 1,000 person. Nashville's 10, a little bit more, a bit more. We actually have more record labels. Oh, wait. No, that's not right. Hold on. What is this? Why does it say 3.2? I'm so confused. Hold on one sec. There's a note here. Oh, Wikipedia. They're leaving their sources. There's like a small number next to it. Anyway. Okay, yeah. So we actually have more record labels here per capita than in Nashville. So as the raw numbers, we have 116 music venues, 34 music festivals, 52 recording studios, and 87 record labels. We have a pretty solid, pretty good, pretty great live music scene. Like overall, we're doing really well. We have a lot of stuff that's going on. Let me see here. So they kind of go through and they talk a little bit about this, and they say, we've mapped at least 35 cafes, bars, and restaurants, and 30 multi-purpose venues that do everything from folk, rock, jazz, blues, classical, country, gospel, hip-hop, dance, electronic, and experimental music. I wanted to read all those. the 13 purpose-built music venues identified in the mapping focus focus on one style of music, just one style of music. And they tend to support more touring acts than they do local acts within that genre. I think this is a big problem, personally, as like a live music performer. Venues with large capacity, 5,000 and over, are mainly purpose-built and occasional venues. So they don't happen all year long. These are the staple in the Midwest circuit, mainly excluding local acts from performing as headliners. Not only performing as headliners, most of the time we're just not even being invited to perform in general. This is just a reality of what it's like in Indianapolis right now, and I think a lot of the Midwest. To me, that's an area that we could focus on as like a community, as an organization, as a whatever. I think that we could do a better job of making sure that when these large stages are being filled, that there's more local artists. One other thing that really stood out to me in that document, there was a breakdown of how much money is being made by certain types of artists or certain types of roles inside of the artist community. And I have like a lot of notes. So I'm having trouble finding it. But basically, the point that I'm trying to like get to here, if I can actually find the data, is that of the overall music ecosystem, artists, creatives, people who create as a living in Indianapolis, of the overall pie of money that is being given to artists. So we're going to say of $100 that's given to the music industry that's being made, that goes to the music industry, only 5 of those $100 goes to artists and creative, 5%. And actually, this was really, really interesting in these studies they've done. When funding for professional and support type roles, so people who work at things like Yamaha, people who maybe they do music in some other adjacent way, when they make a raise, artists actually lose money. That our income goes down as more support is given to these music adjacent like professional organizations. So recording studios, which make money off of artists, we only make 5%, which is crazy. Now, what I really found cool is that men and women, when it comes to like, comparison in pay, if you are an artist, men and women make about the same amount. It says there's a 1% pay gap between men and women, which is could be statistically could be caused statistically. What is it? The problem could be that there's statistical analysis. Oh yeah, if you want to read this, let me find it real quick. It is Indianapolis Music Strategy. Let's see. IndieMusicStrategy.com. I wonder if I can put it in the comments. One sec. IndieMusicStrategy.com. Why'd you autocorrect, dude? It literally just got rid of all of what I typed and just put indie music. So rude. IndieMusicStrategy.com. Okay, cool. Ba-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-da. We're back. Okay, cool. So it's called IndieMusicStrategy.com. This is like a 150-page document. This does a really good job of like breaking down what is going on from like a perspective, like a statistical analysis type perspective. It really is cool to see like where the music is actually like most focused in Indianapolis, which is cool. So let's see, where are we at? Okay, what was I doing? I was talking a little bit about pay. Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that. I feel like for me, I just want more than anything. I want people to feel empowered. I want people to feel like they have some sort of control over their life and their future. And I think more and more it has become harder and harder to do that, no matter how hard you work. If you don't have some sort of financial backing whenever, life gets tough and problems occur, um, there's not really a lot of support to continue having this. What I think is like a very valuable, not just creative. I think creative is like so undervalued in a sense. Like it's not a very accurate term, but like something deeply human. I think for us, the reason why we think in song, I could sing A, B, C, D. All of you are going to finish the rest of that. That's going to go on. It's a melody. We learn melodies. I think because a lot of speech is melody and pattern. It's singing, it's rhythm. It's why whenever you talk to somebody who's learning your language and they don't get it exactly right, it's so hard to understand. And yet somebody who understands, kind of the rules of that language. So you talk to somebody, like let's say you're talking to like a college professor and a rapper walks in the room. You're probably going to be able to understand both of those people because they have a similar frame of reference, and they're kind of, I don't know, improvising on that with the way that they speak. I think there's such a beauty with music and with community that when we allow that freedom of like representation and diversity, it's just such a like catchphrasey word, but like real, true empowerment. Like we say to the people who are funding these things, we're really thankful that you want to fund it. We want to help. Like, great, but you need to pay people well. You need to not treat them poorly. You need to make sure that you're, giving them the freedom to say no instead of always having to say yes and then not, getting passed over for other opportunities. It's a hard knock life out here for people who are trying to run a business that has been like devalued by the overall economic system of our country. So, and technology. That's my opinion. Okay, I was reading through some of their like recommendations. Let me see. I found this really interesting too. They made a document, and this is obviously from like 2020, 2019, something like that. Well, they made a couple Google Maps. So they actually have like live music assets, music industry assets, and music education assets. So people or businesses that are located in Indianapolis. So when you're looking through this document, you can actually find all of these little detailed, maps to know where to go, to know who to call. So that's really cool. One of the things that they did inside of this document as well is they looked at the overall statistics of Indianapolis. And I really found this interesting. I didn't see any more, and I'm only like 2/3 of the way through this document, so maybe it's somewhere later. 19.1% of Indianapolis residents live below the poverty line. I'd be really interested to see what percentage of people who consider themselves artists and creatives live below the poverty line or live below the median income for our state. I think Indianapolis's median income, let's see, it says it up here, median household income. Median household, so all the people in your house, $46,000 in Indianapolis. That's okay. It's not bad, This was in what, 2020. It looks like it is from 2020. So they got these Census Bureau from 2020. That's not a lot of extra money to go around to support arts. It's not a lot of extra money to, make sure that you can go to a couple different shows. If you're a person who is an artist who's trying to make the transition from being a employee at a business and moving into being a artist doing art, that's not a lot of money to save and invest and be able to do all the things that you want to do to actually get your career off the ground. One of the big points that they made as well is around funding for the artists. Let's see. There's a limit. Here we go. Where's the loan? I missed it. I passed it probably. Anyway, so they talk a little bit about loans, and they explain that like in Indianapolis and in, generally in being an artist in Indianapolis, it's really, really unlikely that you can actually get a loan to do your business. So as a person who plays music professionally, does film work, throws raves with the Quantum Cavern, it is really, really hard. Even though I have really good credit because I had a job, the only debt that I have is my house. It's an asset, so it's not really considered a debt in that kind of way. I owe less than 50% of its value, and still I have a hard time getting a loan with any reasonable amount of interest rate percentage compared to, normal businesses. And it's because whenever you have capital, it gives you the freedom to have more capital. And I think when we think about these types of things from a economic perspective or a larger scale like city perspective, we kind of have to decide, do we want to invest so that there is enough resources available whenever somebody needs to do a new project? I scared my cat. Sorry, bud. I dropped the water bottle cap on him. Oh, there he goes. Look at him. Sneaky. Do we have enough extra? Do we have enough money that can be attributed and allocated to the things that we want to do, because it's incredibly risky? So a good example of this, we threw our very first Quantum Cavern takeover in Garfield Park at not a music venue, it was an art gallery space that we were turning into a music venue to do shows. Problem was, there was supposed to be a bar in that venue. There wasn't a bar. They didn't get around to doing it. They didn't get around to figuring it out. They didn't have their liquor license. So then we needed to try and figure out, how do we get a liquor license? Well, we can't get a liquor license because they have already applied for theirs, and they don't want to affect their likelihood of getting a liquor license. So we can't get a temporary one because of weird laws in Indiana, supposedly. So we then had to find all these workarounds and all these other ways. We had to cancel half of the shows that we had scheduled, had to refund tickets, all of these things to just try and put together something that we had been working on for months. For, I think, 3 to 6 months, I had proposals. I had applied for a grant to try and do this idea, and we just went ahead and did it. We just tried to fund it. I picked up random gigs to make enough money that my bills are paid, that I didn't have to get paid out of this. And then I ended up having like a heat stroke in the middle of this whole project, which is crazy. I played a wedding, 3 hours in a suit, just like too much time, too much stress, a whole day running around, got heat stroke, was driving home from Michigan, had to like get a hotel, a little Motel 6 to stay in. Dude was so nice. He was working the desk though. But like, how can you expect for the people who are trying to run a business, who don't have access to funding, who don't have access to the professional support that they need, who don't have access to the time? Like, really, when the median income for Indianapolis is what, $46,000 a year, and how much does it cost to live in Indianapolis? Like, let's do a rough Google here. Indianapolis cost of living. Oh, it's housing is like 22% lower than the national average. It's still like $1,200. Utilities are a little bit lower. Still, you're probably going to pay a couple $100. But when you look at it, like if you're a family of 4, it's going to cost you like $4,000 without rent included, and that's going to easily be another $2,000. If you're a single person living, it's about $1,114 is what they say according to Google. Now, how realistic is this? Once you actually take into account all of the random expenses, when your car breaks down, all of the like stupid stuff that it means to be a citizen of Indianapolis. So then, how are you able to run a like successful arts business if the government is making it harder for you to do it, if we don't have a strategy, if we don't have goals, if we don't have a vision, if we don't understand it? And what you see with this music strategy document, and for those of you who are joining a little late to class today, you can go to youtube.com/@mffred, little @ MFFred, and you can see the screen too. So we're talking about the Indianapolis music strategy. And like, if we don't have adequate funding, Federation. If we don't have like adequate funding, we don't have adequate support, we don't have business people who understand the economic opportunity. $1.19 billion in economic activity. 1.2 almost. 1.199. That's crazy. We are the music scene, the music industry, all of that is doing it. 5% of it is going to artists. 95% of it is going to support people. It's going to people who are doing, recording engineer type stuff, who are, and most of those people are artists too. So let's be honest. There is some crossover, but I think that we have to be realistic about kind of where we are as a city and what we want. I had a conversation with a woman who works for Visit Indiana. And she was like, it just sounds like you guys are running, not really knowing how to run your business. But I don't think she understood that if I was running any other kind of business, whether it was a concrete business or some sort of construction, or if I wanted to get into any like typical trade, I would have access to much better funding. I would have access to much better resources. It would be way more understandable for me to go into debt and a bank understand that I will make that money back, and long term there will be strategy and success and all of these things, and that the rates are going to reflect that. There is so much more understanding of what it takes to build a business by the people who run this city. As long as it's not a music business, there's so much understanding. If it's a music business, they're confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They're not sure if it's even possible. And so they tell us, like, we'll go figure it out. I think we are in the middle of like one of the biggest exchanges of power in the creative world. We see AI taking over a lot of stuff right now, taking over a lot of people's opportunities for jobs. We see AI music being made. A lot of us creatives love using those tools because it's just another like creative, fun self-expression, and it gives us all of this like. And I feel it when I put something into AI and I'm like, hey, here's my idea. Can you reconfigure it to make it look like this? Or can you make an image that looks like that? Like, we get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment and creativity out of that the same way that we do creating any other kind of way. But businesses don't care. Businesses, they don't worry about creativity. They worry about finances. They worry about profit. They worry about making more. And so if we're giving all of this power to take our intellectual property to these organizations that are run by a few people, like, it becomes harder and harder for those of us in these small areas, in small cities, to find success. And I think, and this is probably my own like personal opinion, I think by us having a strong perspective locally, that we can then find a way to like work together collectively to solve problems. There is a lot of money coming into the city from music. We know that. We've seen that. There are a lot of different people, different artists who come to town who are playing in our city, who are making money, who are taking that back to their city. I think we have to have a better story of how organizations like the Arts Council, like Visit Indiana, like the NFL, like the NBA, I think that we have to have a better perspective on how they can support local artists and how the quality is not going to be any different. Because the reality is, most of the people who are coming out here and playing in our city are as good as we are, if not worse. Sorry. There's a lot of great musicians in the city. We are a live music city. We just don't fund it. Most of us don't make any money being live musicians. But I know so many people who are playing shows every weekend, a couple times a weekend. I play like 2 or 3 times a weekend just playing cover songs at bars. Like, we are a live music city. We just haven't built that into the story of what our city is. And the hope with this whole like music strategy thing is that it turns into, don't bite me, it turns into an organization that can then lobby and support the city. But I think we're still really early in like organizing and talking, and like everyone is getting up to speed on what all of this means and what this is going to look like. And there's not even any structure. It's just a bunch of random people from, roundtable recordings. We got random musicians. We got random artists. Sleepy, a.k.a. Sleepy Floyd, Don't bite me. This guy is he's all wild up for some reason. Um, we have all these people who are involved who are trying their darndest to make Indianapolis a better place, and we are. Like, the reality is the Indianapolis music scene is doing very, very well from a creative and artistic perspective. I think we are, at least in my opinion, we are making the best music we have ever made in the city. Maybe ever, maybe exclude the jazz era because like that was a very special time. But I think that we are making some of the best music that we have ever made. Oh, you're biting my shirt now? Oh my God. That we have ever made in the city. We have more people who love the arts, who go to shows, who are involved, but we have a whole bunch of people who will leave our city, who go to other places to search music, to search activities, to search fun things. They'll go to Nashville. They'll go to Denver. They'll go to L.A. They'll go to New York. They'll spend 3 times as much to see a show. They'll see a local artist open because those cities like their local artists. And then they'll support that local artist and they'll fly back to that city. There's no reason why we can't be focusing on getting those people, music lovers, people who really care about music, who love to go see music, who spend money flying in hotels and eating out and all this stuff, and keep them in our city. I think that we have to have a lot of alignment. Like, personally, all of us have to work together. We got to work hard. That is tough, and that sucks, and none of us have the time. No, but I also think that we have to, like, just be okay with imperfection in this. Like, nothing when it is good for everybody is going to be perfect, if that makes sense. Like, I think a lot of times we want something to have like a perfect outcome and a perfect solution whenever we are putting our time and energy and effort into building these things. But it's a bunch of people trying, based on their like limited understanding, limited knowledge of reality, to create something that has a change, that changes reality, that changes the trajectory of some group of people. And there is always going to be a negative outcome or a negative side to that for every person who gets included and every person who gets funded. And I think you see this. Sorry, I'm sliding. Oh, he's gone. Bye, buddy. I think you see this a lot with like organizations like Gang Gang, which whenever they started, everyone was really excited. And as they found out their mission, they had to narrow in and narrow in. And there were some people who were involved in Gang Gang at the early stages who kind of were cut off from that success. Not in a mean way or in a rude way. And maybe there's some of that in the background that we don't know about. But in just like a reality way. There's only so much time and so much focus. And I think when I look at this, in this big old document, it's like 150-page document. For those of you who are just joining, it's the indiemusicstrategy.com, indiemusicstrategy.com, where you can find this document. I think that we are very, very well positioned currently to build something cool. I think there is a renaissance of creativity. There is a mass of artists who haven't left yet. And I think if we don't take the opportunity to do this now, especially as our state gets more and more conservative, as like the country and the government leads more and more conservative, if we don't work to kind of do this on a grassroots level now, I think we're going to miss the opportunity when the tides turn and the tides shift. Because if we look at history, we can see a lot of pendulum swinging. We see a lot of this back and forth between, fascism and liberalism and, whatever terms that we want to put on it. But I think that we are moving in a direction where being an artist is going to look different than the way that it has in the past. I think there will be a lot of us who lean into more activism, who become less, popular or less acceptable to the overall population. And there will be a lot of us who lean into pop music and trying to just make a living. And I think that if we can work together as a city to say, overall, what we need is more support from the people who live here, more support from the businesses, more support from the government who funds music. If we can shift the people who are already funding music a little bit more to local music and continued having that strategy every year and say, cool, we have, more places to play than ever. We have more artists getting paid. We have set standards. We have set rules. And we're building into, the music economy that's here. So things like Yamaha, things like IUP-wise, like music technology program. If we can work to kind of put all this stuff together, then we can get something. And I don't know if that thing that we create is going to be the savior that a lot of us want it to be. A lot of artists don't like the Arts Council. A lot of musicians probably won't like the Music Council if there's a new Music Council. But I think that we have to try to make something of, I don't know, something of like ourselves as a community and as a city. I think. Oh, actually, I would love to grab a beer. Let's grab a beer. Just text me. I'm free now in January. My schedule is a lot more chill. But I think that we can, and also for those people on YouTube, there's a YouTube link with a screen share too, which is kind of cool. But I'm like not really doing the screen share. I'll turn it off. I just think we really do have an opportunity to do something cool. And I love what I'm seeing already. What I want to avoid seeing happening in the future is that we lose out on great artists, people like Public Universal Friend, Remington Hill, these artists that have a very talented and forward-thinking approach to the music that they're making, who move to other cities because we're passing laws that, don't respect women and don't respect trans people and don't respect like human beings in general a lot of times. And I get it. I understand it. And I think if you are a person who's in like the line of fire, especially in the state of Indiana, move, go. My goal as like a white guy from Indiana is to like plant a garden of music goodness. Like, how do we spend our time and our energy tilling the soil and kind of setting up the environment so that we can invite these people in our communities who we like love and we care about, who inspire us. Like, I'm so inspired by all of these artists who have left and all the artists who are considering leaving right now, and the people who are here. They make my life better, and they probably make your life better. And I think if we can spend our time building something that fights against the bigger cultural narrative, that music is only important if it sells something. Music is only important if it fits a certain ideological concept that we can put into something called folk or, pop or hip hop. And I think that we can find a way, even if we don't do this on like a global scale or a national scale, to create a little microcosm, something like New Orleans has, where we protect and we support our local artists, where we do our best to make sure that they're being paid fairly, and that when people are coming through town and they're spending money on music, that they get to hear a local artist. Like, I think at the very root of it is that inspiration to realize you can stay here, you can do something bigger and better that is really, really lacking right now in Indianapolis. It's tough. But yeah, I guess I'm just trying to do my part. And I guess the reason why I'm like doing these live streams more and more and trying to like go on and talk about this stuff, because like I think a lot of this stuff happens behind closed doors, and because of it, a lot of us feel super disenfranchised, and I feel that way. I'm like, as much as I'm like a white guy, like I grew up poor. I was a free lunch kid. I'm just trying, to like get by most of the time, and I've got to this place where I have friends and people that I can talk to that can like give me a new understanding of reality and the world. And I don't know. I guess like my goal is that I can bring some of that same perspective, the perspective that I see into the world in a broader perspective. Also, thanks, Octoplus, DJ Octoplus. I was reading it from a distance, and I was like, Octopius? And then I was like, Octoplus. Hell yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, I'll probably end the stream here in a second because I got to drive across town to this meeting. But yeah, I appreciate you all spending some time and chatting about this. I'm hoping that I will have more to share and that we can keep this conversation out in the public as much as possible. I really want people to have an understanding of what is happening behind the scenes, what is happening in small sectors that might affect them and might affect their careers, because it really sucks when you find out that your career has been ended by someone else's secret conversation. So thank you all so much for joining. I'm also doing this on YouTube, and the quality is different, and it's got the screen share of all the things I'm looking at, and I'll play music and it'll sound better. So if you want to do YouTube, like and subscribe, as the kids say. It's youtube.com/@mffred, like my friend Fred. Or Fred, as some lady told me one night, a little too drunk. I thought that was funny. Thank you all. Peace. And peace to you too, because no one's watching on here. Maybe one person. It looks like there's one person. Thank you for watching, Mr. YouTube. I appreciate you, unless it's just me watching myself.